Welcome to another edition of Irish Illustrated's Instant Analysis. I'm Tim Prister with Tim O'Malley and John Brice. And Instant Analysis is brought to you by the RVMH Hall of Fame in the Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana. Another beautiful day here, November day in South Bend outside Notre Dame Stadium. We just met with Marcus Freeman. Talked a little bit, very little about Syracuse, frankly, a little bit more about the victory against Pittsburgh. And Marcus Freeman, you don't hear him say this very often. The defense was lights out against Pittsburgh, and that's absolutely correct. Held 25 points underneath their average, a couple hundred yards underneath their total offense. It was a lights out performance by the defense against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, very quickly, there was 6 inches of snow 1 week ago exactly today, Tim Brice. So not another beautiful day. Thank goodness we have another beautiful day because it looked like winter came early. But Notre Dame's defense early and often against Pittsburgh. My question post-game was, did Don Schuler set a tone? I think Marcus mentioned we intend to set that tone all the time. It doesn't always work. It worked that day. There is no doubt when the defense comes to play with that velocity, I'm not going to use clarity, when they play with that strength, that velocity, it changes things for opposing offenses. We hadn't seen a ton of that this year in a game where could be pseudo-competitive going into the contest.
John Brice, I compare this to, when we came out of the USC game, the physicality, the way Notre Dame took control of that game. And you look at USC as one of the bedrocks of college football. When Pittsburgh is Pittsburgh, when they're at their best, it's a very physical program. Notre Dame out-physical them from the moment the game started.
Took the fight absolutely to the Panthers, and I think we can't stress enough the fact that Pitt was coming into that game with a week off. Pitt had 2 weeks to prepare for that game, and Kate Bell's offense just really got shook by the Notre Dame defense. I thought disrupted everything that Bell was trying to do. I thought that Notre Dame really schemed up the Panthers incredibly well. Looked like they were in Kate Bell's bag of plays very early on and then hitting incredibly hard. That's about as fast, I think, as we've seen the Notre Dame defense play this year against a true quality opponent. That was a fast defense Saturday.
I thought it was interesting that Marcus Freeman brought up the last touchdown scored by Pittsburgh. He said that's on us.
Oh,
that's on the defense. Well, no, it absolutely is. But I didn't know that he was going to bring that up. And he even brought up Coach Narduzzi's name to say that, look, it wasn't on him, call him a timeout. I don't know if he felt bad about the way that they exited the stadium. It was a pretty brief meeting on the field. But, I thought that was a pretty classy thing to say, look, that's on us. That's not Coach Narduzzi. And we've talked about this before. You coach your team, we'll coach mine. I got enough to do coaching my team without trying to coach yours.
I think that that meeting probably would have been 30, 45 seconds longer if there hadn't been one of those late timeouts. That's my hypothesis, gentlemen.
That could very well be, but I thought that was a classy move by Freeman.
Yeah, I think the point is, you can still stop that play. Obviously, it's a Bush League timeout. You don't call timeout in that situation, but you're still allowed to stop the play, and the defensive scheme on that play was the only poor one of the days, so it worked out for Pittsburgh. Notre Dame played an almost perfect defensive game on that one. There's 5 seconds left. You can put a coin around the end zone and stop a guy from scoring, too. Look, Notre Dame's going to make the playoff at 10-2. But if you're in these situations where you're chasing points, 37-9 looked awfully good. I'm sure he regrets it a little bit, and they didn't play better defense on that play. But I think you got to take it because Chris Hash's defense has been lights out, as Freeman said, of late. They have been fantastic most halves of football since the second half of Purdue.
They're getting better. There were questions asked about Burnham and Dante Smith or Devontae Smith. These guys aren't good. Christian Gray was healthy. I was watching him during pregame. He had bounce in the step. You knew he was ready to play. Some of these guys are the healthiest they've been all year, and it was reflected in the way that they played.
Which is incredible because, again, Notre Dame was not coming off of a bye week. Its last bye week was at the end of October. Notre Dame had played a physical game at Boston College. They played a cold, snowy, physical game against Navy. But credit to Notre Dame's strength staff, credit to Notre Dame's sports performance staff. This looks like a team that has players peaking in so many key areas. And one of those being James Flanagan. And we saw him with some meaningful snaps Saturday. And Marcus updated it on us on Flanagan and said he's got one more game that they'll use him here in the regular season. But again, just a testament to how Notre Dame, they learned a lot from last year's long run, I believe, and now they've managed their schedule and kind of implemented some of those learnings to have this team thinking at the right time.
Final game in Notre Dame Stadium this Saturday against Syracuse. It'll be senior day. Been around Notre Dame football long enough to know, even under Lou Holtz, that there were some senior days that weren't always some of the most successful performances. That hasn't been the case with Marcus Freeman. They've been playing bad teams.
I was going to say.
They're playing another bad team again. Although I will agree with Marcus Freeman. He made the comment that Syracuse's record does not reflect the culture of their program. I would agree with that. I think Fran Brown's a good coach, but they are depleted. When they lost their quarterback, Steve Angeli, to a season-ending Achilles injury in Game 4 against Clemson, the game that they won, they haven't won since then. They're not a very good football team. But, I mean, it was all part of, I'll get into this a little bit, but all part of my question to him about motivation, because it's easy to get your team up for a 7-2 Pittsburgh team that you know you have to win in order to stay alive and that you're going to get a good defensive effort from them. But how do you handle playing a Syracuse team, that's really, really been struggling?
Yeah, and I thought our questions were a bit complimentary. We played complimentary football today, TB, when I did, because then I asked Marcus about managing his own emotions on senior day and maybe how he's grown and evolved, because these guys that are fifth-year players for Notre Dame have been here since Marcus Freeman arrived. These defensive coordinators, these seniors, the fourth-year guys are going through senior day, have been freshmen when Marcus was a freshman head coach. And he said, you know what? A lot of times the message I give them is a message I'm sending myself. I thought that was one of the more insightful things that he provided today, and not because I had anything to do with my schedule. I just found that, or my question, I found that answer very fascinating. They very insightful of a look into how Marcus Freeman approaches because of your question, and then following up and talking about, well, actually, I'm giving a message to myself.
Yeah, I thought that was a poignant thing to say, and he always comes up with the right things to say. Like, that's why I asked him about motivation, and he said, if you respect the opportunity, you will value the moments. And he also brought up the fact that there have been some lessons in the past where Notre Dame has lost to inferior competition. I think that's pretty far in the past right now, Tim. But I do think there's a good culture at Syracuse.
But those are early in the season. I don't think Notre Dame generally plays that way in November. I mean, Brian Kelly had 2 bad senior days in 11. Brian Kelly lit up teams on senior day. And you know why Marcus Freeman and Brian Kelly light up teams on senior day? They play ACC teams on senior day. And usually the ACC is down. I mean, they have annihilated mid-tier and poor ACC teams. This is another one. I think Syracuse has a good coach, good culture. They're going to get run out of this building. Look, if Tennessee 91 or BC 93 or Penn State 90-92 walk through the door, there's a dogfight coming in here. They are going to bulldoze an injured Syracuse team.
No doubt about it. And these have been bad teams. The last 3, and this will be 4 in a row for Marcus Freeman. The conversation about CJ Carr, I think most of us looked at the game. He had the 2 really, pretty bad interceptions. And so I think most people on the outside looking at it would say, hey, that was a poor performance. And it was in a lot of respects. But Marcus Freeman talked about some of the things that CJ Carr does. Drew Mentak actually asked a question about that. Some of the things that he does that show you that maybe only coaches really understand just how he's developing.
And Marcus didn't divulge the single play he referenced, but he said, I've got one play in mind, and it's when if he throws it, it's right to a guy, they maybe pick it off, or it's a bad play for us instead. CJ saw it. We had never practiced it. We had not worked against the look that Pitt was showing. And he said, you know what, I'm just going to hand this ball off and look to fight another day. And that's part of the growth of CJ Carr. And he still made a bunch of winning plays on Saturday. And I thought also very insightful with Marcus Freeman talking about his Sunday night meetings with CJ Carr.
Yeah, really enlightening. He said, I gained wisdom from talking to those guys. Coaches don't say stuff like that. I mean, he's so impressive every time we speak with him. Didn't want to get too Great House in Rubio. For the first time, Marcus Freeman really admitted that, at this stage, there's only 2 regular season games left with Jaden Greathouse. They don't want to burn a year of eligibility. He can play in the playoffs, and that doesn't count against him. And he said that Gabe Rubio will be available for postseason play.
And I think Greathouse can probably go ahead and not dress for this game. You could dress him and not play him as well, of course. He might enjoy that for a senior day game. He's a junior, but out in Stanford, you can need him. If he's available to play, and you're playing a game with Stanford, and you're up 24-17 going to the fourth quarter, maybe you do need Jaden Greathouse if Jordan Faison gets hurt or something like that. It's almost impossible here. I think the important thing is, the key for Greathouse is the red shirt benefits Notre Dame and him, not just him.
Right.
He stopped playing after game 4. The red shirt might just benefit his career as well, but you have him on the team. You might be able to use him, and he can still play in the playoffs. He can benefit Notre Dame in the playoff, and then it can benefit him or Notre Dame thereafter.
He could show Notre Dame in the playoffs why he needs a new deal for 2026, or he could show another team. But the fact is, he can play at no risk to his overall big picture eligibility. He's going to have 2 years left after this season.
We're going to wrap it up there. This has been Irish Illustrated's Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RVMH Hall of Fame, Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana. From here, we'll go to the Irish Illustrated Insider Podcast. Thanks for joining us.